Hello everyone and welcome along to the latest edition of the TII podcast. My name is Craig Dennett and I'm joined tonight by Crawford Hume and Dylan Brand to review two huge games in Rangers season and potentially what is one of the biggest weeks in Rangers history. One went our way, one didn't go our way. We're going to get stuck into all of that over the next 45-50 minutes or so. First of all, Crawford, how you doing?
Good mate, aye. Tired, it's been a long week. I think I'm mentally drained, so back to work tomorrow as well, so I've got absolute fear. But I see this has been cathartic and looking forward to getting it all out.
Yeah, absolutely. We're recording this on the Sunday night, and I think actually the emotional tiredness of this week actually hit me this morning. So I've slept for most of the day. So Dylan, how you doing?
Yeah, good. I think they say that the players are glad to have a pre-season. I can tell you now, I'm quite happy that the season's over now, just so that I can have some breathing space and I love to collect myself. So yeah, all good.
Excellent. So we'll start off by talking about the Europa League final, which took place in Seville during the week. We were all lucky enough to be in Seville. I was in the stadium. Crawford and Dylan were at one of the fan zones. Crawford, I'm going to come to you first. Can you just tell us a bit about your experience in Seville and how memorable it was?
Unreal, brilliant. I went with my dad and my uncle, and we've been going together for, I think I've been going with my dad for about 30 years, so just kind of all culminated with that trip, I think. To spend it with them was great. Booked the flights and everything after the first leg of Leipzig. So we went from Liverpool to Madrid, and then we got the bullet train from Madrid down to Seville on the Monday night. So we got to spend Monday night, full day Tuesday, obviously the Wednesday and the Thursday there, and back up to Madrid on the Thursday and then flew home on Friday. So we had a full week at it, and it was absolutely brilliant apart from the main thing. That was obviously an absolute sickener, but the whole experience was I mean, all the videos and the photos and everything I've got, they'll be great to look back on. And it was just, there was the fact there was no bother, it was just it felt like a festival. It was just absolutely brilliant. And I think on Wednesday and Thursday, I was that down. I couldn't really even look back on it with any fondness at that point. But I think Saturday, with the result on Saturday, and then today I've started looking back and I will now forever look back and go, it was absolutely brilliant. So thoroughly enjoyed it, and just wish we brought the trophy home, but great experience.
Absolutely, and I felt during the day in Seville it was a completely different atmosphere to what it was in Manchester in 2008. There was a more like you say, a festival vibe. Everyone was there to enjoy themselves. No one was looking for trouble. There was no real tension around or anything like that. Everyone was trying to survive in the 40-degree heat, I guess. But it was a completely different feeling and atmosphere, wasn't it?
Oh, 100%. The heat was horrendous. It was great, obviously, because we came from Glasgow and from Irvine for me, and it was when we left, it was absolutely peeing down with rain, so it was brilliant, especially the Tuesday, the first to have that day before the game, just to kind of bed into it. But the atmosphere was tremendous. Everybody was just, I think I was a bit apprehensive going because the media built it up, and it was, you were getting every Rangers veteran rolled out telling us to behave, and you're thinking, you've always got that thing in your head thinking, I hope we do behave, but I never seen any bother at all. Seen a few drunk guys kicking about, but nobody was wanting to start any trouble. And even at the end of the game, when we were in the auditorium, I felt, this is going to turn now because a lot of drunk people in the heat. But I think everybody just walked back to their hotels or their buses, and that was it. So the fans done the club proud, and we couldn't have asked for any more from them.
Yeah, I saw people with some horrendous sunburn wandering about the place. There was some guys took the risk to take their top off, and that was clearly the wrong decision. Dylan, how was your experience in Seville?
Yeah, just obviously it was brilliant. Unfortunately, in 2008 for Manchester, I didn't get a chance to go because I was a bit too young for it. So the chance to go to this final was, possibly once in a lifetime for me. Flew out on a Monday, and from Glasgow to Bristol, then from Bristol to Barcelona. Then we spent 11 hours in Barcelona, and then we flew from there to Seville. So we really had the best part of the day in Seville, and then Wednesday. So, and as Crawford said, it was just a great atmosphere. We went to kind of like the sort of like the fan zone where you get your bits of taken as a trophy. That was great, and bumped into a few Frankfurt fans, and they were brilliant as well. No trouble. I think they were quite glad that they were quite excited. They were just looking. They just thought it was just like a good game of football. They were, and everybody was just that. And I kind of what Crawford said. You kind of just felt like the way the media was building it up, just like in Manchester. You thought there was going to be some sort of trouble, but in all honesty, I didn't see any trouble. It's just, especially when you consider that folk were drinking pro all day Wednesday and Tuesday. So you kind of expected some sort of trouble, but not from my experience anyway. I didn't see any, and that was great. But obviously, after the game, we all talked about the game. I felt a bit down, and I just saw, I don't know if I would just ruin like my whole experience, but just looking back on that, so Seville as a whole city was brilliant. The pubs were welcoming, the locals were great, from the bar staff to the taxi driver to the hotel staff. Everyone was brilliant. And it's going to be something that we'll look back fondly over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was interesting because people have various views of how well Seville hosted it. I thought as a city, it was great to be in, and the different areas that the fan zones were and that side of things were fantastic. I think it seems to be that most of the issues have come from the fans that were actually going to the game. I guess I can provide one perspective of it from where I was. So I was sitting in the main stand opposite the dugouts. It was, I think it was a 45-minute walk from the fan zone to the stadium, which in 39-degree heat isn't the most enjoyable thing in the world, but you're wandering along singing songs and all that sort of stuff, so it goes pretty quickly. We got to the stadium probably about 6:15ish, so we're talking about 2 hours 45 minutes before kickoff. That way where you're just wanting to make sure you get in and your ticket works kind of thing, because it's on your phone and you're a bit paranoid that something's happened to it or something like that, so we're just desperate to get in. First thing noticed, there were a couple of police cordons. We were there early enough, I think, that we didn't really get held up by them. I think the first one was kind of to make sure not too many people were going to the area where you got searched and all that sort of stuff at the same time kind of thing. Second one was for your ticket and making sure that got scanned, and it would give you your QR code. And third one was for an actual search, so you didn't take anything untoward into the stadium, or even take some of the stuff that we were told would be allowed into the stadium. So I was in the queue, and they were safe to say they were quite militant in terms of what they took off people. I saw every person in front of me got one of these battery packs taken off them that they'd been using to charge their phone, which is mental considering the only way you could access the stadium was with a ticket on your phone. So obviously everyone needed those to get through the day, to get to that day, to get into the stadium. You then had people who had just some things like AirPods, for example, not a cheap item to have by any stretch of the imagination, chucked straight in the bin. There was a girl in front of me who had her makeup bag chucked away. You obviously had any bottles of water or liquids or anything you had there chucked away. And there was, if anyone's got any experience with the Spanish police, there's absolutely no negotiating with them at all or anything like that. So that was quite a strange experience, and I know a few fans in front of me tried to have a reasoned discussion with them, but they were having absolutely none of it, and they just kept shouting missile at people when they tried to discuss it. So that must be the reason why they took it off them, I guess, is because they viewed it as it's something that could be thrown onto the park or at other fans or whatever. But it was really disappointing considering what was communicated from Rangers first of all and from UEFA as to what was allowed and what wasn't allowed. We walked into the stadium probably about 6:30, 25 to 7, 2.5 hours before kickoff. We hadn't really eaten all day. We spend our days trying to get to the city and then finding friends and all that sort of stuff, meeting up with them. Hadn't really eaten all day. Was going to try and get a hot dog or something like that at the stadium. And we walked in and all of the kiosks for the full length of the stands, the full length of the pitch, all of the kiosks, there was one open for about, what must have been about 8,000 or 9,000 fans, which just had disaster kind of written all over it. All the kiosks had sort of the UEFA branding on it and stuff like that. But one of the stewards said that they never had any intention to open more than one, which is just absolutely shocking for an event like that. Fair enough. I paid over the odds, so I can't really compare how much I paid to the normal ticket price. But even if you're paying a Category 1 ticket, you're €150. It's quite a significant sum of money for a lot of people, and to get that sort of treatment at an event, it's no wonder people were complaining. My mate went and stood in the queue for water. He was there for an hour and a half. I think he got one of the last couple of bottles of water or whatever, and they ran out quickly after that. In terms of the effect that had, it was obviously roasting. We spoke about the 39-degree heat when we were walking to the stadium. I'd been sitting in the seat for about 2 hours before kickoff, and it was roasting. But there was guys collapsing all over the place. I think there was one shortly before kickoff when the team were out warming up just behind the dugout, and the Rangers medical staff jumped in to help him throughout the game. There was 4 or 5 guys in my section alone that collapsed, and Spanish police just kind of stared at them and told them to get up and that kind of thing. It was only fellow fans, Frankfurt and Rangers fans, that were helping them sort of stand up and make sure they were all right and that kind of thing. And then at one stage, it was an older guy in the same row as me, that collapsed a couple of times, and you get really concerned at that point in time, and it's absolutely not what you expect from a major European event. Crawford, it was a shame that seemed to kind of overshadow a bit the fan experience, wasn't it?
See, we only found this out after the game because we watched it at the auditorium, and there was about 3,000 or 4,000 of us in there, and it was great there. There was plenty of bars, there was toilets, as much water as you wanted, so we never had that experience. And when we were watching the game, we actually commented on how the Rangers fans seemed to be quite subdued, and how we never had a display or anything like that. And then obviously they switched over to the Frankfurt fans, and you've seen their display, and they were all jumping about, and we thought, it just doesn't seem like Rangers at all, especially at a final. And then after that, I started to get a few messages from some of the guys that I knew that were in the stadium, and they were telling me everything about it, and basically just what you've just detailed. The lack of water was an absolute shocker. I get them try to take things off at the door, and maybe lighters and things like that, but people's power banks, they're not going to chuck that. They need it for their phones, AirPods. That's ridiculous. If they're taking water off them, fine, but there has to be a provision inside the stadium. And the fact that there was one kiosk open, that's an absolute joke. And I think something's got to come out of it. I think UEFA's got to, they've come out with an apology, but what use is that now? People collapsing, it could have been worse. One of the guys I knew, he put up a post, and he said that I think it was his dad, had to leave at half time because he just couldn't handle it anymore, and he started worrying about his own health, and he left the ground to go to a local bar to try and get some water. When would you ever do that? You would never. You wouldn't leave Ibrox in a league game if you had to, but to leave a European final to go and get water, absolute disgrace. And then I read obviously the Union Bears statement, how their tifo display was confiscated even after going through all the protocols and giving all the dimensions and everything, and doing a 27-hour journey down in their vans to have it confiscated because I think they had bamboo sticks on the flags. Just ridiculous. And then, I don't think that would have affected the players, but if the players see one end of the stadium having a big display and going daft, and then see other fans being quite subdued, you don't know if it affects them. So, it's just a bit of a dampener on a European final, I think, and something UEFA really need to work hard on to make sure it never happens again.
Yeah, it was a weird one because everyone was kind of full energy at the start, but as the game kind of went on, saw more and more people. Cause everyone's obviously standing because it's a European final. It's a big game. Everyone's desperate to watch their team and support them and everything like that. And songs were going probably the first half hour or so. Songs were going. The Frankfurt fans, I guess, in my experience of German football, they are much more coordinated than any football fans you kind of get in Britain, and they all sing the same song at the same time, and it doesn't really matter what's happening on the pitch. They're just there to sing and support their team, and that's whereas I think Rangers fans in the UK, they kind of support with the ebb and flow of the game. So they kind of what happens on the pitch kind of influences what happens off the pitch effectively. But I think the lack of a tifo was a surprise to even us in the stadium. We were surprised that Frankfurt had one and we didn't have anything. Something didn't seem right about that. You assume that the Union Bears had organised something, and they obviously with their statement afterwards that they had, and that side of things. Dylan, one thing I'm surprised about, and we'll go into the game and the events of the game in a second, but one thing I'm surprised about is actually we are now 4 days after the game. So record on the Sunday. I've seen UEFA's muted apology that they gave to Johnny McFarlane at the Rangers review in a statement, but I've not seen anything from the club come out to say they're going and they're defending the fans and they're demanding answers and all of that sort of stuff. I would say it's a bit of a surprise, but I'm not really surprised about that. How do you feel about that at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, you say that. Also, I've not really seen much in like the Scottish media at all, but I feel like most of it is on Twitter from the fans' experience. I think kind of like Crawford as well in the stadium, when you sort of look on the screens, I was surprised that it wasn't even a display from our end. And then, you know, during a game, you see people back home kind of like saying why are not fans singing at the stadium, you know, and this and that. And then once you start to get like a full scope of the situation, you start to understand, well, that's why. I think it's a personally a disgrace, absolute disgrace, because I think I've praised Seville as a city to host it, but the stadium this was an utter disgrace, and even like from reports about how like the steep like the stands are, so if you were to like fall over, then it would have been serious damage, and the fact that there wasn't any water supply. So I think I heard some people actually went pick up bottles from the Crown and rushed to the toilets to use tap water, and it's recommended not to drink tap water in Spain. And then you started hearing reports that the water supplies then were turned off in the stadium with the taps and that. And it's just, and the fact there was only one kiosk open, you know, for 1,000 fans. I mean, and the fact they ran out of bottled water when it is like 30 odd degrees, and it's also just like any covers in the stadium, so you're not in the shade. So not only the fact that people AirPods taken off, sunning as well, from what I heard. So you're saying most Rangers fans were burnt, and probably that's why, because you know most of them didn't have the back protection. From what I understand, the reason why Seville that team got it is just based on Seville's success in the competition. It's fair to do it. You have to make sure that there's added for both set fans. Major European final. The fact that it's hosted in a city, in a stadium that's not even the biggest in the city, speaks volumes. So, yeah, I'm really just hoping that the club does take action. The club does seek answers from the authorities as to why this was allowed to happen, because potentially, there could have been fatalities from the way you described it, and the fact that you have fans collapsing on the floor again, the fact you have medical staff coming in to treat people, players giving fans water because they're that dehydrated. I think it's unacceptable, especially in this day and age.
Yeah. Onto the game itself, Crawford. I've not watched it back. I don't think I could bring myself to watch it back just yet. One highlight clip I have watched back time and again was Joe Aribo's goal and the celebrations after that. I think that might be the best feeling I've ever had. I was speaking to my mates before the game, and they were all like desperate to win, and obviously you are desperate to win. But one of the moments that I was desperate for was to celebrate a Rangers goal going into the league in a European final. We've had the celebrations at Ibrox against the likes of Dortmund and Braga and Leipzig, and I just thought that was going to be on another level, and it absolutely was. That's a moment that's going to live with me forever. It was just a crazy moment, wasn't it?
I couldn't believe it when he did score, because I felt up until that point the game was quite poor. I don't think Rangers, they couldn't get into how we were expecting them to play, and I think he had a lot to play with that, probably both sides. Frankfurt probably had the best of that kind of first half going into the second half, but when the ball broke to him and he's going through, I just stood there in disbelief, going, "Oh my God, I can't believe he's actually going to score here!" And then when he stuck it away, it was just absolute pandemonium. I mean, but it was probably even worse in the stadium. But where we were, it was just utter disbelief, and people were just looking about, going, "I can't believe we're leading a European final here. This is unbelievable." And then you're kind of brought back down to reality, thinking, right, we've still got another, 35 minutes to go, and I think that's probably the thing. We probably scored too early in the second half. But that moment, like you say, that's probably one of the best, if not the best ever. I thought Leipzig at home in the semi-final. I thought that was probably the best when Lundstram scored, but I mean, he was clean through, and you're just waiting for it. I think it was the build-up to it, because it wasn't just like a corner where it just happens. It was like he's through, you're standing there and watching him, and then he stuck it away, and it was just brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I think Dylan, I think I said to my mate I was sitting beside that we just need to get through 10 minutes of just not conceding a goal. We got through those 10 minutes. I think it was actually 12 minutes we got to before we conceded. It was a bit of a gut punch, wasn't it, when that went into the net? And it seemed like such a simple goal to lose as well. It wasn't a worldie or anything like that. It was a bit disappointing, the manner of the goal that we lost, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think beforehand, Frankfurt had a few chances on goal. Always some chances that if they were to score, it would have been a much better goal than what they ended up scoring. And at that point, you kind of just saw we might actually do this here, because you just saw that they might end up regretting these chances. They might let the head down and just think maybe it's not their day. But I think, the goal that we conceded was probably a goal that we've seen so many times this season. It just felt like a collection of errors. I think, Miss Goldson probably could have cleared it. Basile lost this man. And yeah, it was just sucker punch, because as you kind of said, the Riva goal was just such a high, and then the goal that we conceded, but 12 minutes after, as you said, this felt like such a massive come down. And you just start to wonder, right, what way is this game going to go now?
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of going forward, I think we were visibly starting to tire at that point as well, which was a bit of a concern. Thankfully, Frankfurt were exactly the same. They were starting to tire as well, and I think there was calls for, and certainly around me anyway, for Kemar Roofe to come on to the park, and we'll speak a wee bit about that later on as well when we come to the Scottish Cup final. But I think we were just, Aribo was starting to tire a bit going forward, and we're just lacking something going forward. Went into extra time. I think both teams had pretty much settled for penalties at that point, until Kemar Roofe came on with a couple of minutes to go, and I thought he caused them a hell of a lot of trouble in the space of 2 minutes that he was on the park. The most obvious chance that he created was the one down the line. He got reached the byline. I think, now having seen the screenshot, since I got home. I think the ball was just out the park and probably would have been ruled out for VAR, but he crosses the ball across face of goal. Ryan Kent's running in on goal at pace. You're just expecting the back of the net to bulge, and he somehow manages to miss it. I'm not quite sure if it's a miss or a great save or a combination of the two. Crawford, by that point, I thought that's our chance gone, kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. And actually, when I seen it after it, and I seen the ball, I thought it was just over the line as well. And do you know, in a way, it actually made me feel better.
Yeah.
I thought, it went in right at the death, and then to get it choked off with VAR, that would have killed us. So, I thought it was a poor miss, if I'm being honest. I thought, I mean, the boy came in behind him, and he's done well to put him off. And I don't know if it could have been a penalty or no, probably not. But he's gone at full speed, and he's probably caught it too well. He's caught it flush, and it's went right in the centre. If he'd miskicked that, it's in. And if it had stood, that would have been a game over. Would have won it. It'd have been great, but you're just torturing yourself. That's the one thing I kept thinking about the whole day after that. I was like, if that chance just went in, and I just couldn't get it out of my head. And then when they went to penalties, I just had this terrible feeling that we weren't going to do it when it went to penalties. And the first ones we hit were great, but as soon as I seen Ramsey coming out, he just didn't look confident.
Yeah,
and I just thought, no, he's missing it. And every other penalty from both teams was hit with conviction, a lot of pace. And everybody says, try and hit it in a corner, whatever. But I just think, see if you just hit the ball with pace, from 12 yards, if the keeper saves it, it's wherever it is in the net, it's a great save. But there was just no pace on it. He's just lack confidence, lack conviction. It was an easy save. It was between the middle and the left hand side of the goal. And as soon as he missed it, that was it. I mean, the last penalty, you're just hoping against hope, and unfortunately, it didn't go our way. But that's it. Yeah,
absolutely, Dylan. I thought when we went to penalty shootout, I thought maybe we've got a wee bit of luck. We were hitting them in front of our fans. We were going first. All the wee things that you think of in a penalty shootout that you ideally want to go your way, they went our way, and I thought, maybe our luck's in. Obviously, facing a German team. German teams are renowned for their penalty taking ability, like we saw in there. The only two parts of the game I've watched back are the Joe Aribo goal and then the penalty shootout. Every single one of their penalties was absolutely top class. I don't think there was one McGregor got really close to. I don't think he could have gotten any closer to it, but it was so perfectly placed that he couldn't get to it. But I think Dylan, with Aaron Ramsey's one, actually looks like he changes his mind at last minute. It's almost like he's going to go to the keeper's left, to Ramsey's right, and then the last minute he just changes his mind and tries to whip his foot around it, and that's why he's kind of gone halfway between the centre of the goal and the corner. It was absolutely devastating, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think what Crawford said, that all the penalties were kind of hit with pace, with precision. Whereas Ramsey, I think I've only watched the penalty shootout a couple of times, so I definitely see what you mean. Definitely seemed a bit lackluster, the Ramsey penalty. And again, it was as a corner, because I think as soon as he did miss that, you just saw, I can't see it now, it was just such a sucker punch. And listen, I think you don't want to be too harsh on Ramsey, because it does take some serious balls to kind of put your hand up to be one of the first five to take a penalty. And listen, there's been better players than Ramsey that have missed penalties and shootouts. So, and I can't. Although I was gutted at first, I can never be angry at him, because at the end of the day, it's literally a 50-50 chance. There's always going to be a hero or a villain in these penalty shootouts. And again, it's just fine margins, because I think the penalty after Ramsey for Frankfurt, I think the boy actually hit the post and it went in. So again, that's just fine margins. So it hits the post, it went in, whereas Ramsey penalty, it just got saved. And for the last penalty to decide that you're just praying that McGregor just builds it out of the bag, or the boy slips up and it sends it skyrockets. But I think even he knew that he was going to score this and win it, and to lose it that way was just such a shocker for us. I think that's probably the reason why I was just so shattered after it the day after, just because we were literally one kick away from winning it. And to win a penalty shootout, best feeling in the world, but to lose it is just, you start to think, well, yes, you just start thinking all the little things during the match and during the penalty shootout. But again, I just feel as if Frank were always going to win it.
Yeah, Crawford, the final was obviously a moment in Rangers history that will always be remembered and we'll always look back on. That's precisely why all three of us wanted to go over to Seville and show our support for the team. And effectively, we went across. We had a really memorable time, a time that we'd live with us for the rest of our lives. Got to spend the day with tens of thousands of Rangers fans. I'm not going to put a number on it. And got to spend the day with our mates. We can't really ask for much more than that. But I just wanted to touch on the reaction from what seems like fans of every other club in Scotland afterwards. It's been a bit weird, hasn't it?
Well, one in particular, don't think it's weird at all. But you know, it was strange yesterday at the cup final. We went to a pub down for Hampden that we normally go to, and there was a lot of Hearts fans in there. I think they normally drink in there because that's their end as well if they're playing, you know, Hibs. And most of them in there were great. You know, they would say, look, they were wanting us to win it and they were gutted to be never. But I don't know if they were just saying that because they were in minority in the pub. But they were quite complimentary of us. And but the rest of them, I don't really take any notice of them. I think there's a lot of jealousy when it comes to Rangers, and that's just part and parcel of being a big club and being a successful club. I know a lot of clubs want to knock me down, and we know what it's like in Scotland anyway. And it's been that way. It's probably got worse over the last 10 years. But you're always going to get that. People just want what we've got, and you just need to take it on the chin. But I wouldn't trade this season for anyone else's. If I'm being honest, if you said at the start of the season to get the European final in Seville and get that experience, you know, you can always win a league. We can do that every year. If it goes our way, you've always got that opportunity. But what's that? Rangers have only been in 5 finals throughout our whole history. So 5 finals in 150 years. It's not something that happens all the time. So I suppose other clubs, they don't get that and they want it. So the reaction's to be expected probably. It's sad, but it's to be expected.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. You go as a European final by one kick of the ball and everyone's trying to take the piss out of you and you're just like, just shrug your shoulders, don't you? It's just, it was a weird one. Dylan, and we've spoken about, all three of us have spoken about how down we were after the game and how gutted we were after the game. In the build-up to the Scottish Cup final on Saturday, I was still pretty down, if I'm being honest. I was struggling to get myself up for the game, and then my attention kind of turned was, I wonder how, if that's how I'm feeling, and I wasn't even playing in the game, I wonder how the players were feeling at that point. Was that a concern at any point for you in the build-up to the Scottish Cup final?
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, I was that shattered and emotionally drained after the game that the next day we were in the airport. I was just sitting at airport cafe, and I looked up and I seen Barry Ferguson walk past. And normally I would go up and ask for a picture, but I was literally just I just cannot be bothered. I was just that sort of emotionally drained by it all. But no, I think I was in a minority where I just saw, right, we just need to get focused for the Scottish Cup final now, because I think you may have heard some people saying, I just can't be bored with it or stuff like that. Again, I don't know if that's how the majority felt, but for me, it was important because I think if yesterday we were to lose it, then it would have been such a long summer of this, negativity around the club, and then you start to think to yourself, is Gio the man? Is any of these players up to it? So, but again, that's from a fan perspective. You can't imagine how the players felt, because they were literally one kick away from immortality, essentially. Again, there'll still be legends for reaching the final, but I think even with John Lundstrom after the game saying that he felt, as a team, they felt like they let the fans down. And listen, we were all gutted that we lost the final, no doubt, but I don't think we can be angry at the players because, again, they kept us probably one of the best days as like Rangers fans, and yeah, I think it was like a huge task on Teal's hands to sort of cheer the players up. I think, again, we're going to touch on it probably as we talk about the match. I think the fact that they were able to sort of turn to the match, go the extra time again and to win it, I think to me not only shows the fitness levels, because I thought when you sort of look at the match, if you were neutral, you would have thought that Rangers were played 120 minutes plus penalties a few days beforehand in a city that was 35-degree heat. So not only is it testament to their fitness, but also kind of like also kind of speaks for like the mental side of it. The fact that they were able to bounce by and the fact that they were able to get to the finish line.
Yeah, Crawford, Gio, I think it was good that Gio was able to refresh the team a little bit ahead of that. I think that probably contributed to some of the freshness, I guess, as we went into the game yesterday, and to kind of give everyone a wee bit of a lift. John McLaughlin came in as keeper, obviously. We also saw Balogun come in and replace Barisic, who was injured. Bassi moving from centre half to left back. We also saw Davis and Amad Diallo come into the team. It felt like a good number of changes, but I think I was expecting Aaron Ramsey to start as well. Potentially either Sakala or Alex Lowry. What did you think of the starting lineup when you saw
it? I was surprised Diallo started, although he had been playing well recently. But I thought Roof might have started. Maybe gave him 60 minutes, try and get the game won as quick as we could. I wasn't surprised Ramsey never started because I think the boys. I'm actually quite worried for him, his fitness, because when he comes on, he looks as if he's carrying the cart horse behind him. He's really slow. He looks heavy. And I don't know if he's got an injury and he's trying to play through it or whatever it is, but I wasn't really surprised that he never started. I would have liked to have seen him get him on at some point, just to try and maybe do something to make up for the miss. Although I'm not blaming him for it, because you take a penalty, you've got that chance. But I thought it was a good enough team to start. It was good seeing Davis in from the start. I thought the first half you could tell we were flat. But I think the fans really galvanised the team. I think the players seen the support was there, and if we can, get through that and turn up to Hampden and give them that support, then I think that G'd them up. And I think after half time, there was only one team that was going to win it. I think we should have won it in 90, but to get into extra time again, and then, we just looked so much fatter than Hearts. It was unbelievable. I don't know if that just comes through muscle memory because I've done it that often. But Hearts, I don't think they had a shot on target the whole game. I think the one really hit the post and that was it. And, that's pretty damning of them, really, because you thought they'd have come at us. But I thought the changes he made worked well. We got the result in the end. I thought Ryan Jack coming on made a big difference, as well as Scott Wright. So there's a wee bit of doubt, I think, just because you think, well, we've done extra time, we're doing it again. But as soon as we scored the first goal, I thought that was it. And you could tell straight away, got the second, killed it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like you say, I think Hearts' only chance really through the game was when they hit the post in the first 5-10 minutes. Dylan, I actually wondered if they'd scored at that point, if we had enough in us to come back from it.
Yeah, it would have been certainly a sucker punch anyway. What Crawford said, I was quite surprised that Hearts didn't really go at it from the point of view. Definitely, from what I can understand, it was probably like their strongest starting 11. Obviously got Barry Mackay, who's had a good season for them. Sims, who looks a pretty decent player, seems a pretty promising player. Obviously they were quite sure to have Boyce as well. He sort of holds ball up well, but I think, and again, I thought Sims should have scored it, to be totally honest, or at least getting on target. But I think it was going to hurt my mouth at that point where I just thought, if that went in, I don't know how the team would react to, because I don't think playing the team kind of like had a heads down basically after that, because it probably been an uphill struggle. But as Crawford said, kind of like after that, Hearts didn't really threaten us too much. Obviously had a few shots, but I can't think we like threaten the clock. And I'm to be honest, I've basically from what I've seen from the highlights. But again, after the first half, I thought we were just a much better team. We created better chances. Although I did feel like after the yellow header, after the Revo and right chance at the end of the 90, you kind of just thought to yourself, is this going to be one of these days where we generally do attack? We generally are the better team, but we just can't get over the finish line. But that's what we'll get on to was the goals. Luckily, that wasn't the case. So yeah.
Yeah, Crawford, I'm keen to get your thoughts. Actually, one of the main talking points I think that's coming out of recent weeks, it may have been even since January with Gio, is firstly when he says in press conferences when players are fit to start, such as mainly Kamar Roof, to be fair, and then he gives them hardly any minutes or no minutes. I think that may actually create a bit of a rod for his own back with the fans a little bit at times, because you question why a player like Roof isn't just playing for 60 minutes and then coming off, if that's the case, even if he needs some minutes in the legs. But I think another aspect that came out of yesterday was that at half time the fans were effectively crying out for Kamar Roof to come on, for Aaron Ramsey to come on. We were lacking some creativity up front going forward. We were struggling to create many chances at all. Yes, that improved in the second half. For the substitutions that were made during the second half yesterday, Scott Wright coming on for Diallo. Obviously, Diallo was walking a fine line towards a red card, I think, at the point he came off. And then about 5-10 minutes later, it was Ryan Jack and Glenn Kamara that came on. I don't think anyone would have picked those as the changes that needed to be made to win us a game that we were struggling to create chances in, but it worked. I wonder if there's a bit of adjustment we need to make as fans to just trust Gio, because the changes he makes seem to work, and he's now got a proven track record of them working across quite a few months. But as fans, we would be making completely different substitutions, and we're calling for completely different substitutions as well.
Aye, well, as fans, you always know best, don't you? Gio's only been to a World Cup final and won trophies everywhere he's went, so what does he know? But no, I think see some of the chances that fell to Rebo and the one to Diallo, you just wonder if that fell to Roof. Does he stick them away? And I just think if he's no fit, why is he even on the bench? What's the point? If he's on the bench, you think, right, well, maybe you'll get half an hour out of him. Otherwise, why is he even there? Why would you go 120 minutes and not bring him on at all? It's just bizarre. I think sometimes it's a bit bizarre. But Gio probably he's standing at the touchline and he's just reacting to what he's seen, and he thinks this is how we can maybe impact Hearts. This is how we can maybe get something. But I just felt Ryan Jack's scored a screamer from the edge of the box. 9 times out of 10 that doesn't go in. So then you're still sitting at not an each, and you are needing a striker. But luckily for us, that strike does go in, and then we hit them on the counter. And lucky you've got Scott Wright with the pace he's got, and he sticks it away with a really good finish. But if Ryan Jack doesn't score that goal, then you're going longer and longer, and you've not got a striker on the pitch. So we do need a striker on the pitch, I think. But Aribo's done great up there, and maybe Gio sees him that he can play in that position. But I think going into next season, if he doesn't fancy Roof, which I think sometimes he doesn't, then you might see a striker coming in. We've been really unlucky. We're obviously losing Alfredo and then Roof getting injured. And as your third choice striker, it's just not really worked out for the boy. If you spend a lot of money on a third choice striker and then Morelos and Roof never get injured and play a whole season, it's a lot of money down the drain you could have used in another position. So it's hard to justify it to the board, I suppose. But I think that he will bring in a striker, and you might even see Roof probably going, because if he's fit and he's on the bench and he doesn't get brought on, it just seems to me like Gio doesn't have much confidence in him.
Yeah, I don't think he is fit, to be honest. I don't know if Gio's just trying to keep Hearts guessing, but I think that the striking department will get a major overhaul in the summer, especially finding someone of Chris Boyd's ilk, effectively someone that just scores consistently against everyone else in the league, effectively. That's badly what we need as a backup to Morelos and Roof, I think. And like you say, it's a hard balance because you don't want to pay too much for someone, and you need to find someone who's willing to sit on the bench for 30, 40 games a season and maybe only get 5-10 minutes and that side of things. But I think that'll be one that we discuss long and weary over the post season kind of break. Dylan, just one last point on the game. Just wanted to touch on Scott Wright. I thought again when he came on, he did really well, and his desire for the goal that he scored to sprint from the edge of our own penalty area to support Ryan Kent, and ultimately provide the goal that secured the game was his desire and work rate was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, quite ironic how two former Aberdeen players have won the Scottish Cup for us, so you can give them that stat as well. Yeah, I thought, for me personally, I thought the Scott Wright goal might have been better than Ryan Chat's goal, just because when you watch the highlights, with the Ryan Kent pass, the boy wasn't the best pass, so you just think, right, okay. But then I thought Scott Wright did well to sort of like collect the ball, get into the box, and it was like upon replay, like a fantastic strike. I think he hits it very cleanly. I think he just sort of makes it look easy as well. It's just a very well placed shot against a keeper who probably had a really good game for Hearts at that point. Yeah, he had a decent impact, and again, he had that header towards the end of the first 90 where, again, probably other times that was going to go in. He was just unlucky to hit a crossguard because it was a great header, I thought. And I think with Scott Wright, I think, fans have been kind of on and off with him all season. I think at the start of the season, he seemed quite promising, as he did towards the end of the season beforehand. Then, again, I don't know what happened. Maybe he just didn't really add much to his game. So I think teams knew how to deal with him. And I think when Gio came in, you kind of had the feeling that Gio just didn't fancy him for whatever reason. But I think the fact that he started like the last few European games, not to mention the semi-final and the actual final itself, the fact that Gio is willing to turn to him on the bench as well to make stuff happen, I think sort of shows that hopefully, by next season, Scott Wright has that place in the team, and whether or not it's a star or just like an impact player off the bench for games that we're trying to look for something. So it'll be quite interesting to see over the course of the pre-season and next season where Scott Wright is, and hopefully that he can add that much to the development.
Yeah, Crawford, I felt that, and I'm sure everyone's in agreement, the Scottish Cup was the very bare minimum that we as fans and as a team deserved from this season. I think our performances, albeit in the league we had that dodgy patch just after the winter break, our performances this season have merited much more than just the Scottish Cup, haven't they?
Definitely. I mean, Europe's been tremendous. I think after Malmo and the first two games in the Europa group stage, I don't think any is expected to reach the final. So, particularly when Gio came in right from the first game, when he had to win, he's really galvanised the squad in that particular arena, and it was tremendous. That I don't think we could ask for any more. You get to a final, then it's just on the night, but actually reaching it, I think, was beyond all our wildest dreams. I think in the league, coming back from before Christmas, I thought Gio had really solidified the team. We looked solid. We looked defensively a lot better than what we had from the start. It's just that period after Christmas. I don't know what it is, but then something happens every year for a reason. We've drawn too many games, particularly the one Motherwell winning up 2-0 and then chucking 2 goals away. Ross County away, we lose the late one. the Dundee United game, one each at Tannadice, we absolutely battered them, and how we never scored a second goal a day is beyond me. So the draws have killed us. You can forgive losing an Old Firm game because, they're just, I think, 50-50 on the day. And I think after the 3-0 game at Parkhead, I felt Gio had got to grips with them and how to play them. And I think that kind of bodes well going into next season. So the league was, I think, more us chucking it. Celtic have had a great season. They've bounced back, but I think people need to remember how much money they've spent. If they never bounce back, I think they'd be asking a lot of questions. They spent over £20 million. You expect a big response. We never spent the money in the summer. This was all free, so needs to be a bit of perspective put on it. So it's been a good season. I think the Scottish Cup was the bare minimum. Win silverware. We've got that monkey off our back. We've got a trophy. Won the league last year. We've reached a European final. So the club's back where we all wanted it to be after 10 terrible years. So for me, as long as the board invested in the club in the summer, I think you can only go one way.
Yeah, absolutely. Dylan just touched on a point Crawford brought up there, just as the final point before we round up this episode of the pod. We're going into a big summer for the club, aren't we? It's we're seeded for the Champions League qualification draw, which will hopefully work in our favour. But at least it gives us a really good chance, or a really positive chance of making the group stages. At the very least, we've guaranteed Europa League group stage football, no matter what. But we've also got potentially a big turnaround in the squad coming up this summer, whether that be through players out of contract, players moving on because other clubs want them and are willing to pay big fees for them, or us replacing some players that we don't think meet the standards or the levels that we need in our squad to take us to the next level. What are you expecting to see this summer?
Yeah, I think when you say big change, you've got to think this current squad has, you've heard on Twitter, on various broadcasts, interviews, that this squad's probably reached the end of its cycle. I think it needs to be seriously freshened up. Obviously, you've got some big players that could potentially be leaving. Again, not got confirmed at this time, but there's suspicion that Goldson will be leaving, McGregor will be leaving potentially at this time anyway. And obviously you've got the likes of Davies could leave as well on a free, and then it's a question of players have been sold. We could potentially see big interest, especially in players like Calvin Bassey, who I thought has been tremendous over the last 2 games, man of the match performances for sure. I think Gio has done enough for us as fans to sort of trust him. I've always kind of said that the last couple of months will be career defining for him at Rangers. I think if we were to, lose out yesterday on the Scottish Cup final, I think then questions would have been asked. But I think the fact that he has got us to a European final, the fact that he won the Scottish Cup just a few days after a disappointment speaks well for me. But again, we just need to invest wisely, I think. I don't think we can gamble on potentially getting Champions League money, because that's not guaranteed. So I think we need to make some smart investment in not only signing the right player for us, players that can be consistent for us, perhaps not looking at Team of the Diamonds, just looking at players that can hopefully do a job for us, for even if it's just a stopgap for 1 or 2 seasons before we can get our right target. I think as well as that, we just have to make sure that if we were to sell some players, we sell them for the most money that we can, get the best possible clauses. Because again, you look at how Ross Wilson dealt really well with the Nathan Batson deal. Hopefully we can see more of that for some of our players. But yeah, I'm expecting some big changes, and in all honesty, I think I'm really excited for it, and hopefully we can go and do bigger and better things for next season.
So, right, we'll wrap up the podcast there. It's been a longer one than normal, but I've plenty to talk about, as you'll all have heard. Crawford, thank you very much for joining us.
Cheers, thank you, guys.
Dylan, thank you very much as well for yourself.
Absolute pleasure, Craig.
Excellent. So that's not the end for TII until next season. Obviously, the season's over now, and I think Rangers will be back in pre-season training towards the end of June. But TII is going to continue throughout the summer. We've got some really exciting news coming as well. Some changes that are coming to the podcast. We'll be going live on a daily basis to bring you all the latest Rangers news and to discuss all the major talking points starting in the coming weeks. So keep your eyes peeled for that going live. Everyone at the podcast really excited about that, and bringing all the latest news through YouTube and social media and that side of things as well. To make sure you don't miss out when that starts, make sure to subscribe to the TII YouTube channel and make sure you turn on those notifications as well. That's all from us for this podcast. Until next time, goodbye.